we have our enemy up here, the mushroom monster, and he's going to attack me with a magic spell. And we'll watch that as it hits the wall, and then we'll watch it as it hits me, the player. There we go, the reaction, and there you go. So, what we have here is pretty simple. I've created two particles, the mushroom magic right here, and mushroom magic explode, which you've seen. The explode only has this auto die script on it. All it is it kills it after 5 seconds or wherever the timer is. So I'll delete that. Mushroom magic right here has a couple scripts on it. Magic mover simply moves it forward at the speed. No big deal there. Magic spell is a script that has the collision on it. So it knows the owner, it knows the damage minimum, damage maximum, and the death particle, which in this case is set to be the explode particle. And on collision stay, now this is set as a enemy magic, and this is kind of important. The layer is enemy magic here, and if you go into your physics section, you want to make sure that enemy magic only interacts with default, player, and interactable. Interactable, of course, is the chests and whatnot. But you don't want it to interact with other enemy magic or with other enemies, otherwise it will hit itself. Now, if your game does allow for enemy magic to hit other enemies, then you'll have to make some logic to make sure the trigger or the collision doesn't register with the enemy that is its own parent. So there's that. But otherwise, just make sure that the physics is set so they don't interact. There's a sphere collider on here. It's not a trigger, it's just a sphere collider with the right radius. You can close that for debugging. If it gets destroyed often, uncomment this, and you can see what it's being hit, what it's hitting in order to destroy it. So the object hit is the other collider game object, and if the object tag is player, then we're going to cache the player health script, which is a new script we'll talk about in a second, and just say the function got hit and choose a random number between minimum and maximum damage. Now, if you have a more complex game with armor class and resistance to certain magic spell types and all that, then you'll want to do a little bit more math on the damage, either here or on player health, or a combination of the two or whatnot, or some other function in a class somewhere that just gets information passed through and does some math. So for our purposes, we're not going to deal with that, so it's just simple random damage between the two, and they're floats, not integers. And then regardless of what it hit, we want to do the death particle. So if the death particle is there, if there's no death particle, it'll be ignored. Then create the death particle. We're going to create on the first point at which the collision happened. So imagine the two circles colliding. It will happen between the two circles rather than the center of the particle that's being destroyed there. And then destroy the game object. Player health right now, it has just max health, current health, and the animator. Pretty simple. Got hit takes the current health minus the damage. If the current health is greater than 0, we do the got hit animation. Otherwise, we do the death function, which would have the death animation. Nothing else right now. We'll add more with the UI later. And that's pretty much it for the magic spell. It's pretty straightforward. You'll want to do more logic for spells if you want the spell to follow the player, or do area damage or anything like that. But for our purposes, we'll start simple and keep it simple. So that's the magic spell. Alright, now I've added an attack point object to the bone structure of the mushroom. I want it to stay right here attached to the bone, so the closest bone is this bone 3. And so I just put it here. It's just a sphere collider and this enemy attack point script. Now I'm going to set the owner to be mushroom monster, and the attack point script basically looks for a collision. It's set to enemy magic as well, and I might actually change that name just to be maybe enemy attack point or something. Since this isn't magic, so it doesn't make sense, but it works still. If this hits the player, then it's going to first pass along that it hit the player-to-player movement, and then it's going to deactivate the attack point object, and that way it won't hit the player multiple times. Right here on hit object, it has it tells us in the console that it hit the object. That's a debug thing for now, and that does the same thing as the magic one did. It casts or it calls player health and just says got hit with the random damage. I did add the random melee damage minimum and maximum right there. And now I need to do this start attack and stop attack, because by default I want attack point to actually be turned off. So if you find the mushroom monster animations, it's in the model mushroom monster right here. Let's look for attack 3. That's the one right there. And we're going to add 2 events. First we're going to scroll down to the beginning of the attack, probably right here. We'll start checking right about there. Add one called start attack. And then we will add one more. Right about there, I guess. We'll call that stop attack. Start attack and stop attack will turn on and off the collider, the attack point object, and that way only during this one small check will the mushroom monster actually be able to cause damage to the player. Before or after that, no damage will be caused. So let's go ahead and give that a try and see what happens. And let's assign attack point to our enemy movement script, and let's see what happens. And run up right close to it so that we get the melee attack. There we go. It does appear to be turning on and off, but it doesn't appear to be colliding. Because we need a rigid body. There we go. So we just need to have the rigid body set to kinematic is fine for this one. And now it'll check and it'll actually hit the player. So let's turn that off and make sure we reattach that. Turn off the gravity is kinematic. So there we go. Now we've got the enemy both attacking with the attack point and the magic spell. Next we'll do the player attacking.